I just went to Egypt and got back last week, and in listening to more of your talks and information, I was like, oh my gosh, you know all about Egypt. This would be the perfect time to ask, what the hell is Egypt all about? Because
Right.
in my recent exposure,
Yeah.
I'm like, I literally just said to myself, when people asked me how it was, I think they were expecting me to come back with some sort of like giant epiphany or some magical experience or something. And maybe I was too on some level, like maybe that'll happen, but I wasn't looking for that. But all I could say when I came back is I was like, we just don't get it. Like we're not asking the right questions. And I'm
Right.
not even sure we know the right question to ask.
Exactly. It's so gigantic. It's such a big enigma that it's actually hard to figure out like what exactly happened there and how did it actually get done? Because I mean, everybody knows about the pyramids and all this, and a lot of people know about the stats of the pyramids and how they're incredibly precise and all these things. But there's so much more. You know, you go to Saqqara, you go to the Serapeum, you go to so many places, you know, along the Nile and so on, and you see things that are just remarkable, that are not easily explained in terms of ancient civilization with copper tools and vine ropes with like a few 100,000 slaves pulling.
Yeah, right. Let's just pull that giant monolithic size stone up here and wait, that's just one of a bajillion of them that we're going to get
Right,
up here.
exactly.
And it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. And why would you want to build like that? You know, civilizations built with the means of their technology at the time. You know, even today we use bricks that are easily carried, you know, from one place to the other.
Wait, the giant people. Do you think it was giant people?
Well, there's stories about giants
Right.
from all around the world.
Right.
It could be that they were very large people at one point on the planet. They're in the cultural myth all around the world from societies that didn't know each other and that should not have the same ideas, you know. And then as well, you see same type of architecture all around the world as well. Like, why were they all building pyramids? And we're finding more and more. It's not like there's a few.
Right,
there's
they're all over.
Thousands. Yeah.
And how many are covered right now?
Exactly.
Right? How many are covered by trees and bushes? And, you know, you look out and you're like, that mountain looks perfect.
Yes. Actually, they're just using new technology, LiDAR technology. They're starting to map out in southern Mexico and Guatemala and so on, the jungle, and they're finding thousands and thousands of pyramids that they didn't know was there. And they're saying, oh my God, there must have been a population of millions of people in this region. And, you know, it like the conventional archaeologic explanation of, you know, these kind of like very, you know, low technologically advanced civilization and low cultural, you know, advanced knowledge is not consistent with what is being found all around the world. So yeah, and so you got the same stories all around the world. You get the same type of architecture around the world. And when you look at the stories are very consistent. They talk about giants, but they as well talk about, you know, these giants coming from the stars. They talk about them as sun gods. And they talk about them coming in vessels or boats that floated in the air and so on. And so, you know, I know this is controversial, but when you look at the evidence, it's overwhelming.
Before we get into more specific questions, there seems to be bridges connecting science and mythology and spirituality. So how much how much of the mythological stories do drive the science? Like, where's the intersection there that makes you look at something? And do you even believe in it at all? Because being a scientist, they're stories, right?
Right.
But where do they come from?
Exactly. Well, if they were really scarce and they were very different across the world from each other and they didn't have any consistency and so on, you would say, well, maybe they had a really good, in those regions, they had a really good imagination and they come up with all this stuff, right? But there's this thing about the consistency. And then for me, and this is certainly not the typical path for scientists, especially not in physics, for me, I was very interested in archaeology. I felt there was a great mystery. And I was very much interested in the anomalies in archaeology. And I could see relationship between the physics I was writing and the symbolism that was found in all these different cultures around the world, left by the sun gods, and for me, it was like, wait, maybe there's something to learn here about the foundation of reality. And, we have a tendency to live in what I call like, linear view of reality. Right? We tend to be horizontal in our view, right? We do our work every day, we go home, we do the laundry, take care of the kids, do the cooking, go to bed, start over again, right? And so it's like we have a cap and we're just looking on the surface, right? Like on like a linear way. And I call this going vertical. So like to blow the cap and then take maybe a galactic view of Earth, right? Well, from the galaxy, Earth doesn't even show up. It's too small. Even the sun is too small. But imagine that you could take a view from the galactic perspective. How much possibility of life is there in the galaxy? A lot.
I think that it's one of the most egotistical things to think that we're the only existence in the universe.
Right. And then you got to ask as well deeper questions like, well, how did it all get there? Right? How did it get all there? And how is it getting organized so that in some miracle, 100 trillion cells would continue to do the same thing, like duplicating exactly the right way so I can keep living, right? It's not just like, oh, it happened millions of years ago and we got biology going. It's continuing to happen every second, right? You're dividing about 1 million cells a second. There's billions of chemical change that are occurring in your body continuously. There's this incredible dynamic of creation occurring for you to be able to sit here and look back at ancient civilization or look at physics and so on and wonder about the nature of reality. And so when you go vertical and you look at it from that perspective, and then you look at these ancient civilizations and the symbolisms they left and the philosophy they left and all this, and you look at advanced physics, all of a sudden you start to see they converge. And that was my first gut feeling intuition early on, 30 years ago. And then I started developing physics based on this understanding. So I think there's something really profound in, when you go to these temples, for instance, in Egypt or in Maya country or in Peru and so on. There's something profound, and it's not necessarily some spiritual awakening that's going to happen. It's just a realization that something probably remarkable happened in our history.
What do you think that was? How are these temples built? How were the walls clad with information and like there's no way somebody had a little hammer and chisel. Like they're perfect. I was like, did they have a stamp? Did they have a casting? Yet the pictures are different, all of it. So
Right.
what is it in a bigger overview? Like, what do you think Egypt? What do you think the story of Egypt is?
Well, I think that, and we're discovering this more and more, many researchers are working on this, but that there was a pre-cataclysmic civilization on our planet.
Right.
That existed prior to Maya, Egypt, and Inca, and so on.
Timeline-wise, where would that put us?
It would be like 12,000 years ago, prior to the meltdown of the last ice age, which might have been this reporting all around the world of these ancient civilizations about the Great Flood, right,
Yeah.
where the water rose dramatically all around the world, and so prior to these events, there may have been a civilization on our planet that left monuments all around the world that was maybe quite advanced, and advanced in a different way that we're advanced today, with technology that might have surpassed what we're capable of doing today.
Seems like it.
Yes, because many of those pieces we see around the world are not something we could reproduce with all of our cranes and all of our advanced CNC technology and so on. We can't take, like the statues that are 1,000-ton, right? We can't take 1,000-ton granite or diorite statue, which is almost as hard as diamond, and put it in the CNC and carve the face of a pharaoh. So it's perfectly symmetric and so on. Like, we can't do that.
Right.
There's a lot of evidence that's piling up about this earlier civilization that may have left us very important pieces of information about the nature of reality, the nature of consciousness, and the nature, like advanced technology that could free humanity from the bondage of being stuck on the surface of a planet, for instance, with limited resources. And we're arriving at a very important time in our evolution where we have to do something dramatic to learn to produce energy in a sustainable way, to learn to, motivate, move ourselves in a sustainable way, and so on and so on. And I think maybe some of these ancient sets of knowledge are present to help us with this moment.
One baseline thing that I came away with was that in exploring these temples, and we went to a ton, I mean, it was 2 weeks of touring. I mean, like the Hathor temple, like there's a sort of canal, like they would call it like a birthing canal that goes down and splits.
Right.
It was daytime when we were there, and it's dark. But of course, they've now had to run power down there, and it, running it on the floor with lights. But there's nothing on the walls about fire, electricity.
That's right.
There's nothing in there to tell you, like, how did they see?
Exactly.
And the walls are covered with information. So it's like, I was in there during the day. So I'm like, what did they do for light?
Right. That's a big question, actually. It's hard to answer that question. There's no, some thoughts was that they were using mirrors of the time, but mirrors of the time.
What does that mean?
Well, mirrors in the right angle to reflect the sun into where they were going. But, mirrors at the time were not reflecting light very well, and they were, it wouldn't have worked in some of those areas. I mean, when you go into some of the pyramids, you're hundreds of feet below the ground, like the Serapeum. I mean, there's all kinds of places. Under Saqqara, there's a chamber that's almost like maybe 8-story high with a diorite box in the middle that's enormous, almost 2-story high diorite box that made out of 62 pieces, each one weighing over 100 ton, over 500 ton, and so on. I mean, it's not conceivable that you could do it that way. And then, at the Attar temples, recently they were doing repairs on the floor, and they found that there's, these huge pillars.
Yes, they're
right?
huge.
They're huge.
Gigantic.
Right.
Like, I mean, never mind the walls covered and everything. The pillars in all the temples are grandiose. They're
Yes.
gigantic. They're on the outside, they're on the inside.
Yeah, and you're like that small beside it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, why did they make the ceiling so high, right?
Why are the pillars so big?
Yeah, because that'd be hard to do. Well, now they found that it seems like there is the same pillars underneath, meaning that the temple we see today is built on top of another one.
That's what the guides were saying, is that like they were all of these are built on top of old temples.
Right. That are even older.
Yes.
Right. So then that would be the temples I'm talking about from the earlier pre-cataclysmic. And you see, this is where there's been some confusion in archaeology. You see that in Peru very clearly. We assign certain buildings and certain monuments to the Egyptian or to the Incas or the Mayas and so on. But when you actually look at these monuments, you can see what was repaired and what was original. And you can see the repairs are of a quality much lower than the original. And so we've assigned the same dates from the repairs to the original. And when I was in Egypt and in Peru and so on, I was pointing that out to the guides. Some of them being, archaeologists that are well seasoned and so on.
Yeah.
And they were noticing, especially in Peru, like, oh, now I get it. Inca, pre-Inca, Inca, pre-Inca.
Yeah.
And so, some of the technologies that are, like for instance, these walls in Inca country in Peru, where the stones seem to have been melted onto each other so that they're perfect, very complex puzzle. Not one stone is the same.
I have a picture literally like at Machu Picchu in the ruins, and it's like a perfect like notch, and it's all just like, and it's like slightly beveled edge, and everything meets up perfectly.
Right.
You're just like, how'd they do that?
Exactly.
Why? Why would it just be flat? Like if they're stacking stones,
Right.
Why you got a notch here? You know?
Yeah. And
crazy.
then there's theories that they had moles, and they were like in Egypt that they were using limestone powder and making the blocks.
Right.
But then you look at the pyramids, and not one block is the same size. So you would have to make 2,300,000 moles. So that doesn't make sense, right? If you got a mole, you make them all the same, and then you.
And it was smooth too. The outsides of the pyramids were smooth, right?
Yeah, they were.
They look like they're stacked right now as blocks, and there's edges, but originally it was smooth.
Yeah, that was the inner rough layer that we
Right.
see. On top was a layer of limestone that was perfectly smooth and perfectly the few blocks that are left. You can see the joints are perfect and so on, and that was mined to build early Cairo. It was mined off the pyramids, so there's not so many blocks that remains. But yeah.
The big question that I have, and let's separate them because I feel like they're different, is the purpose of the temples and the purpose of the pyramids.
Yeah.
Because of course the temples were, mostly all of, obviously, like, open, and there's rooms, but they're very open. And of course there's some places you can go underneath a little bit, but, and there's probably even more connecting things here and there, especially when you get into Luxor and connecting certain things underground. And of course they, the thought of the pyramids and the Sphinx and everything became connected underground. But the temples seem to serve a different purpose. They were also clad with all of the stories and the rituals and the offerings and the, you know, accomplishments and everything that's all over the place. But then you go to the pyramids, and the pyramids are just the pyramid. There's nothing, there's not a thing on the wall. So the difference between the temples and the pyramids, but let's go with the temples since that's what we're talking about. What were they for?
Well, I think that the two were connected, like you were saying. You know, they found underground tunnels, you know, that connect everything. I mean, and it's pervasive, meaning there's more and more tunnels being found every day, and you know, and not everything is published. You know, I was fortunate to be in the presence of various, let's just say, you know, official agents. You know, when I was in those regions, that showed me maps of what's under there. That's remarkable. But there's so they seem to have been connected like a big. It just looked like a big circuit board. You know, when you looked at the map, it just looked like I make circuit boards in my laboratory, you know, electronic boards look just like that with components, you know, and then connections and all this, the traces and all this. So like it looked like a huge resonant, you know, electronic circuit that connected. And so I think the pyramids might have been a power source, you see?
Yeah.
And the temple would have been the place where the consciousness and the spiritual awareness and all this, or the higher, you know, path of initiation was happening. Because you see, science, and this is finally occurring in physics, you can't really divorce consciousness from reality. We are made out of atoms and protons and electrons and neutrons and cells and all this. And we have this thing that we call self-awareness, and consciousness is kind of a weird word because it's really not well defined. You know, it's like, what is that? Right? But
that's why everybody keeps writing about it.
Yeah.
What is it?
What is it? Right. Exactly. So I like to use self-awareness. It gives more of an understanding, like some kind of feedback. But so this, you know, let's say you have an evolution in which a civilization maybe even bypasses the mechanical, like industrial revolution that we went through.
Okay.
And goes right to quantum entanglement, right? And
uses it.
Yeah, and uses it, right? And gravity control, and you know, all this,
right.
And that's conceivable, right? It is. It's not that we don't see that that's a possibility. It's just we went a very specific trajectory, and it might have been a little bit of a detour. So let's say there's another civilization that did something a little different. And you see, they would arrive at a place of understanding of the physics of the universe that would include the evolution of consciousness, right? That would include what we might call spirituality today, but that is just like physics we haven't understood yet, right? The nature of awareness, the nature of consciousness, the nature of being able to like transcend your, you know, linear experience to like going vertical and maybe, you know, having a deeper integration with the universe, right?
Yep.
So that you're not thinking, oh, I'm just a little thing that's kind of like separate from everything, to, oh, you know, my physics, my technology and everything is showing me I'm actually part of this amazing will works of nature, and you know, I'm an intricate part of it. I'm the universe learning about myself, right? And that leads to a very different kind of technology.
Right.
It leads to a very different kind of interaction, human interaction with each other and so on. And so if you look at these ancient civilizations and you think technology and advanced consciousness, right? You would see something like pyramids that could be power plants, right? So there's no writing in them because it's a power plant, right?
That's exactly what I thought. I mean, when going into the Great Pyramid and going into the King's Chamber, like, it was super. There's a lot of people on this trip that were able to sort of sense different things, and there's clear everything, right? Like, so, but I feel frequency pretty easily. So you go into the King's Chamber, and, or is it called King's Chamber or Tomb? King's Chamber. And 'cause no, he's not living, the tombs are in the, Valley of the Kings.
Yeah, they never found any mummies in the pyramids.
No.
Yeah.
And so, but you go in, and the frequency is so high. And I thought, these were like energy centers.
Right.
That's what they felt like to me too, because the frequency was high. There's nothing adorning the walls. There's no comfort. There's no beauty even on some. I mean, it's cool. It's interesting.
Right.
But it's not aesthetically like somewhere you'd be like, oh, do you want to have tea in the Queen's Chamber today?
Yes.
Like, no.
It's not one of those.
No.
Maybe in the temple over there.
Yeah,
but,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But it felt like that to me too. And, I had a lot of thoughts about the tops of the pyramid, and like the top of Khufu, the Great Pyramid, isn't even there. Do we know where it is?
No.
Okay, so what do you think it is? Because I had plenty of thoughts about that too.
Oh,
Well, I mean, I just had random thoughts about, like, why don't we know where it is?
Right.
And what purpose did it serve? Why wouldn't it still be there?
Right. Well, there is multiple depiction of, there's not that many depiction, first of all, of the pyramids. And all these walls that are adorned with all this hieroglyphs and everything, telling us everything about the Egyptian, there's actually nowhere where it says, oh, and by the way, on our spare time, we build the pyramids, right?
I don't even think there's pyramids on the wall. Like, they don't even have, like,
Right, that's right. So there's only a few places where they were found. And in those cases, which made the archaeologists think that the cap of the pyramid was made out of gold, it shows the cap radiating light. Okay. Of course, to an archaeologist in the 1800s, the first thought might be, oh, it must be reflective surface, could be gold, right?
Right.
I don't quite come to the same conclusion.
I know you're a scientist, but what's your opinion? Because it's hard to prove these things, right?
Right, yes. My opinion is that the power source, so I was privileged to be able to be in the pyramid by myself for hours in the middle of the night, and I was just tuning and humming, just
toning.
Yeah, toning, just like really light.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just to see like how does it resonate, this chamber, right? How does this cavity resonate? And it was just remarkable.
Yeah.
Because
I got goosebumps thinking about it, 'cause we did the same thing.
Yeah, because I had groups coming in and out, for 2 hours at the time. But in between the groups, I had these moments alone. And as soon as the last people would exit the pyramid, when I was toning, all of a sudden the resonance would change. And it was just remarkable. I could feel the whole pyramid. You were talking a lot of tonnage of material. Yeah, resonating. And people outside said, I could hear you toning. And I'm always toning like really quietly, And so it was just, so think of the pyramid maybe as a resonating cavity, right? And think of the technology that would be very advanced, right? That would be a technology that has gravitational effects, a technology that's extracting energy from space-time, very advanced technology like a warp drive or something like that. Well, that technology would be a resonance link to the structure of space-time. And I'm so excited today because I just finished solving these equations literally yesterday. And I'm just blown away.
We're right on time.
I'm just blown away. Like yesterday, I didn't, but I felt like jumping.
Cheers. I know this is not.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
we can cheers with whatever you want, but all we've got is coffee and tea right now. That's fascinating. I mean, share whatever you would like to share. Or can't share.
Well, we can talk about that. But imagine this technology being so advanced because it's tapping into the structure of reality. Tapping into that is a resonance match. It's like a radio being tuned to the right frequency so that all of a sudden it's like, and then the whole pyramid is like an antenna, right?
Yep.
The whole thing is just, and then those pyramids are on huge limestone slabs.
Yeah.
The biggest in the world, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, one of the biggest. And if they weren't, they would have sunk, right? Because they're so heavy, right? So like the White House sunk like 6 inches, and it's much younger, right?
P.S. Aren't they called abelos? What are the spire spears?
At the front of the temple?
Yeah. What are in Karnak?
In Karnak?
What are those called?
They're
like the spire
obelix?
spear.
Obelix. Yeah.
Obelix.
Yeah.
The one in D.C. is from Egypt.
Right.
That's crazy. Who knew?
Well.
Okay, sorry. I just had to mention that because I thought that was fascinating.
There's one in London. There's one in England. In London. There's one in France, in Paris, right? And then there's a replica in D.C., right?
Do they make some kind of grid?
Yes. Well, I think at the time they were definitely antennas at the entrance of the temple, so that because these things are highly tuned. You know the one in Karnak that's still standing?
Yeah.
That thing is huge, right?
It's huge.
So it's like 500 ton, made out of granite. It's perfectly straight.
Yeah.
They didn't miss like a beat.
There's
right?
things designed into that too. It's clad with information.
Exactly, all the way up. And when you look closely, it's perfect, right? It's perfect. And there's many that are fallen, mostly because the Europeans tried to take some to bring back to London and France, and they tried to take the big ones at first, and they realized they couldn't take those because they're too big. But when they fell them, they broke and stuff. But basically, you can go to the nose of one of those and hit it, and the whole thing resonate like a tuning fork. Yeah, exactly. So now think of what I was telling you about the pyramids, this power source that's resonating the whole thing. It's on a huge, it's on the earth crust ringing, right? And then all the obelisks at the temple are capturing the signal, right? And
free energy.
Yeah.
This is their, I don't know. You look at like the Ankh, right? I had to wear my flower of life because I want to talk about, because I had this made because I've always resonated with the flower of life. But the Ankh being like, looking like the Nikola Tesla, coil.
Coils,
and it's like, they are pictures of him holding an Ankh all the time. And I get it's the original cross is the sort of, whatever possibility, of course. But then what is it also energy? Was this also part of their energy system?
Yeah, the original cross thing is, I think, inaccurate because, like they hadn't transformed it into a torturing device yet. Okay, but, but you can think of a...
So what was it then? Okay, it's not the original cross. Then what was it? Why are people holding that in every picture?
Right.
Why am I wearing this?
Exactly. They might have been technology specific. Like I was saying, you have to think of the technology in a different way than when you think of technology mechanics today and stuff like that. It's probably a different level of technology that we don't well understand. But for instance, the pyramids are made of mostly silica, right? Like it's a huge crystal, right? And we use crystals in our technology today because they oscillates well, right? So they're in our computers, in our phones, and everything else. Like all microchips are running off these little crystal wavers.
The amount of information, it's from what I understand, you can. There's a lot of information that can be held in a crystal, right?
Well, yeah,
Is that true?
Well, it depends how you define information. Yes, but we definitely use oscillating crystals in all of our electronics.
Okay.
Right? So imagine a civilization that's using an oscillating crystal, but it's the size of a pyramid. Right? So then the power source that's oscillating that thing is a different level of energy than our little batteries in our computers so
also in your pineal gland, it's crystals in the pineal gland,
that's
right?
right. Yes, there's liquid crystal in the yes.
We're like our own obelisk.
Yeah,
Obelisk or whatever.
obelisk.
Yeah, obelisk. I don't know why I can't remember that.
You can imagine the body as being a biocrystal oscillator, and certainly all your bones are piezoelectric like crystals. When you walk, they produce electric fields, and this is why if you go in space, you start deteriorating if you don't have gravity, because you need that piezoelectric effect, to keep all your tendons and your muscles activated and so on. And so it's really, like I said, all of a sudden, if you reach the vertical level of technology, if you think about it, what it could be, then it starts to all kind of come together. Right? Maybe they weren't just thinking of energy as electric fields to light up something, which they might have been able to do in a way that didn't require wires.
Right.
Which
Nikola Tesla invented.
Did as well. Yes. Wireless transfer of energy is absolutely possible. It's been reproduced, but you can think as well as maybe they were energizing the human crystal, as well, that they were bringing, high level of coherency and so on. Maybe they could extend life, maybe they could regenerate cells and so on, and that might explain as well their huge later in the dynasty intent on trying to preserve the crystal of the body, right? Because when you look at how they embalmed, which we don't understand in modern chemistry today, how they embalmed the body so that they would preserve so well and so on.
We can't replicate that?
No. We have, there is secrets that we can't figure out how they did it, in terms of preservation of the tissues and so on. It's remarkable. And so there is, so maybe they were wanting to preserve the crystalline nature of the body for, certain purposes in the future and so on. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say. And this might sound really very esoteric, but I assure you, I'm talking to you about this coming from a perspective of physics. And, a standard physicist may not even understand what I mean by a perspective of physics there, because it's beyond the standard model. However, we're starting to discover this place beyond the standard model. And much of it has to do with what I've been talking to you about, meaning that there's information in space-time, there's energy in space-time, and there's a source of reality that is a field that connects everything, that everything is entangled, that black holes are not these huge monsters that just appear in the middle of galaxy, but that they are part of the evolution of creation and so on. So there's very, very deep level of physics that are emerging from those thoughts I was talking to you about.
So I guess at the end of the day, because this is all fascinating and it's fun and we talk about it, but it's like, I always think to myself, okay, what does this mean? What do we learn from, like, going to Egypt and seeing, I love the joke in my head I've been thinking since I was there is it's like, the writing's on the wall. It's like, it literally is.
Yes.
What are we missing? So what is it that inspires you the most and leads you down a rabbit hole from ancient Egypt?
Well, I think the awe of being there and seeing these things, and I think if you study them for many years, as I did, and you never actually go there and see it,
yeah,
you're missing. You have to go and see it. It's just
you just have to see it.
Yeah, it's all inspiring,
Yeah.
and you really get the sense of the the enormous task that it would take to put these things together. But
Yeah.
I think the key is that, first of all, to realize, and more and more archaeologists in Egypt and in South America are agreeing that they must have been a pre-cataclysmic civilization. I think this is becoming almost the standard in archaeology, in Egyptology
Got it.
over there. Now this, I think, is telling us, I think, what can we get out of this? I think what we can get out of this is that there's something way beyond, we were microbes, and then the microbes got together, and then they made a monkey, and then, the monkey started walking on 2 feet, and, it became some kind of, Homo sapiens sapien, and somehow the Homo sapiens sapiens start to become self-aware, and, that there's something deeper. I mean, that story might be true, but the fact that it happened was not some kind of random event, but that there is a deeper, evolutionary pulse in reality, in our world, in the physicality of our world, I'm talking not some spiritual thing, but actually in the atoms that you're made of, right? That these things are carrying information, and that evolutions are cyclical,
Totally.
and that
The stories in Egypt are cyclical. Like you look at the story of Isis and Osiris and the, Immaculate Conception of Horus. And then you look at Mary and the Immaculate Conception of Jesus. Like the cycle, like you start to hear the backstory further and further and further. And you're like, wow, I've heard that story before.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, just as an example that I heard there.
You find it in the Vedic tradition. You find everywhere. Maya, Inca, so on. You find the same stories. So you see these cyclical dynamics of evolution, and you start to think, okay, where could we go from here? Maybe we need to go, it's literally Back to the Future. It's maybe we need to understand what happened then so that we can move forward now.